Hey guys, welcome back to another Torah Tuesdays. We are talking about the Sabbath commandment. Yes, this is a part 2, not something I'm going to do all of the time, but I really felt that the Sabbath commandment is so important for us as believers today that it really deserved a part 2 because there's some various aspects that we really need to look at. And what we want to focus on right now is understanding this Sabbath commandment within its cultural and historical setting, because this really helps us to understand what it is it's doing and how the Sabbath is actually a commandment focused on resistance. Yes, resistance. So, what is the cultural setting, the historical setting of the Sabbath commandment? Of course, it is the Exodus. The word Exodus, by the way, means departure. It's the departure from Egypt. And that gives us a very key point in understanding why this commandment was so vital to maintain the freedom of Israel. Now, if you remember, a couple chapters before Exodus chapter 20, all the way back at the beginning of the book of Exodus, we have Israel who are slaves in Egypt. As a slave, you don't get a day off. You don't get a day off. They worked 24 hours, they worked 7 days a week, possibly, they were working in shifts 24 hours a day because Pharaoh was all about production. And in fact, when they wanted to have 3 days off to go worship their God, what does Pharaoh do? He says, "You are lazy, lazy, lazy people." To Pharaoh, the way to get ahead in life was to have a 24/7 economy. The more we work, the more we accomplish. Sounds a lot like the world today, right? We have a 24/7 society where people are all around the clock working, because the idea is if we were to stop working, we would stop progression. And you think about how even in Genesis chapter 1, this idea is abolished. By the way, the Sabbath commandment is connected to Genesis chapter 1. Did you notice that? And in Genesis chapter 1, God creates the entire world in 6 days, and then he rests on the 7th. What is the lesson there? It's that the creator of the universe, the one who created everything, does not have to work 24/7. Even he, running this world, has the ability to take a day off. And so the idea of the Sabbath commandment is to teach people that human beings are not created to be production machinery, to just constantly work. It's the idea of not only you have a day off, notice the wording of the commandment, but it also says so that your son and your daughter and your maidservant and your manservant, even your ox and your donkey, even your animals, and the stranger who is within your gate can have a day of rest, so that those people can have a day of rest. By the way, that Sabbath commandment wasn't so much for the landowning Israelites because they could take a day off, right? It was so that they could take a day off as well as everyone. No one was to work. Everyone was to cease. The Sabbath is a way of teaching us back then, and extra important for today when we are back to this idea of 24/7 society. This concept that for some strange reason, the world will stop existing if we don't have our store open for 7 days a week. Now, consider a modern day example of a business who has chosen to follow the biblical model of working 6 days and resting on the 7th, albeit they don't do it on the right day, okay? The 7th day is important because it is actually tied to God's creation of the universe. But nonetheless, even in their failure to get the day right, Chick-fil-A, for example, Chick-fil-A does what? They close on 1 day of the week. Now, in a fast food industry, that makes no sense. Because if you're open another day, that's one more day of profit. And yet, even though they are open only for 6 days out of the week, they still are one of the most successful franchises of fast food in the United States. That is amazing. That is the lesson that God is teaching us through the Sabbath commandment, that we were not created to produce, but rather we were created to rule and reign and to walk and love and live with our God and our Creator. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this teaching, please do us a favor and go ahead and subscribe to this channel so that you can get future updates on new teachings that are available. And don't forget to check out the website, faithofmessiah.com, where you can find a lot of great teachings, as well as how to support this ministry. And if you'd like to invite Ryan White to speak, you can find out more information there. Shalom.